So I would like to talk about fantasy. Um, Fantasy is, of course, a very prominent theme in my life. As I like to consider myself a fantasy fulfiller. Um, and Jesus Christ, my fucking eyelashes are coming off. Anyways, and I am one who also entertains quite a bit of fantasy herself in a day. Um, and I think it can be very helpful and it can sometimes be harmful as well. Um, as sometimes we don't really think about how fantasy is fantasy and not reality. But I think as long as we are, you know, able to see the distinction and able to appreciate fantasy for what it is, then it can be really amazing. Um, so obviously, one of the ways to uh, I think, anyways, feel good is by getting lost in a fantasy, right? Um, so when I create my videos, then I try to, fulfill a fantasy, but it is only on video. Um, so I'm not a person who particularly likes to uh, have my own fantasies fulfilled in that way. I'm more of an imaginer. Um, but I do find it, helpful to get lost in literally just a fantasy sometimes. I'll just lie, usually I lie on this bed, not on my own bed, and I'll just lie there, just like fantasizing about things that may or may not ever happen. Um, and so one of the ways that this came up in my life yesterday, um, is uh, so I have this really um, special, I guess, relationship with this person who is a sound engineer at a club that I used to frequent. Um, the relationship has not very many times been taken outside of the club. It kind of just stays there. We've gone outside of the club a little bit, but the relationship is mostly just being together behind the sound booth while he works and I enjoy the music. And so the reason that this, in my mind, needs to remain a fantasy is because when I go out, um, I'm going out into my own fantasy world that I've created for myself in a lot of ways. And so I don't go out unless I can be this like beam of energy that lifts everyone in the room. And so I don't go out very much because that's like a hard thing to do, it's a hard place to get to and it's a hard thing to do. But it's the only way that I like to go out. So oftentimes, I go out and I meet people and they think that I'm just this like angel, because I kind of am. So it backfires when then you repeatedly see the same people, and they start wanting to see this person because why would you not want to see that person? But the thing is that that person doesn't always exist. So yesterday, the sound engineer was texted me and wanted to hang out with me before he goes on tour again um, for a while. And I said I couldn't. And I asked why he wanted to hang out with me so badly. He tells me, we have this connection that can't be explained and describes me as an angel. And I said I don't want to ruin the fantasy. And he said that it can't be ruined because I am the fantasy. I was like, fuck, he doesn't understand. And I don't really want him to understand because I don't want to ruin the fantasy, you know? So I guess the point is when something comes into your life that seems like angelic, then sometimes it can be best to just leave it that way. Um, 'Cause I've also had the experience of meeting people and thinking that they were an angel and pursuing the fantasy. And it always turns out that they're not. And the other times that I've not pursued the fantasy, then those people get to remain angels to me. Um, and um, and it's nice, to be able to recall those instances with people that were only good and that are a fantasy in a lot of ways, but a real one. Um, so I hope that that makes sense. What I'm trying to say. Uh, so yeah, I mean, I guess the way that it's helpful to me is it helps me to be the fantasy. Um, but that's only something that I can do when I'm like, like I said, in the right place. But it does help me feel better, and it does help me get through my own life when you don't just people react to you in that kind of way and see you in that kind of way. So that's one way it's helpful. And another way that it's helpful is, like I said, when you meet people who are a fantasy, to just accept that maybe they are and let it be that way.